The Goat multi-tool is finally here, and this is a fantastic tool, but many people will still find the Leatherman much better. And we'll get into that. So let's go ahead and start out with the size and the weight of this multi-tool. So this comes in at 7.5 ounces. So it is very comparable to the Leatherman P2. So think about it in that size and essentially that weight. So the P2 comes in at 7.6 ounces. Both of these come in around that 4¼ inch frame. So it will be longer than a Leatherman Wave, but it will be a lot lighter as well. So the positives are, I really like the pocket clip on the Goat multi-tool, and I really like the design of it. Again, we see very strong design cues from the P series. Not only do we have the hammer, we have the weight very similar, the length very similar, and then we have outside tools as well. So essentially what the Goat multi-tool is, it's a P2 that you can replace every single tool, and you can also print and make your own tools. So that will appeal to a lot of people initially, but as with anything, there are growing pains, and that is one of the things we start to see when we open up the handle. So when we open up the pliers, these are spring-loaded pliers. Again, a lot of times I associate these with cheaper tools, but a lot of people like spring-loaded pliers, and they definitely have some advantages. It doesn't mean they are cheap. It's just a lot of times that's something cheap tools will add in as a little bit extra. Now, one of the big disappointments for me in the Goat multi-tool, the biggest so far, is actually in the wire cutters. So again, I think this is the best modular multi-tool ever made, because almost every modular multi-tool is really bad. So the Goat multi-tool didn't have to be very good to become the best. But again, with that said, these are very similar to the cutting ability of like the center drive with those swappable carbide cutters. Now, these are not carbide, but unfortunately, because the angle of these, at least on mine, and again, this may not be true in every single person's, when you are getting into thicker wire like so, and some people will say, well, it's just because the wire is too thick. Well, if I bring my Leatherman P2 out, it cuts no issue at all. And you can see there is a very long slant to these cutters, and these are excellent. Now, not every Leatherman cutter is as good, but it cuts very authoritatively, I guess you could say. With the Goat multi-tool, the best I can do is angle at the bottom, try to cut it really hard, and I still can't cut all the way. So I can cut, but not all the way through. Now, if I do it at the top or even the middle, all I'm doing is squeezing, and I'm making indents, but it's not cutting all the way. And I think that will really be disappointing to a lot of people, because one of the first things you want to do is see a multi-tool that cuts well. And to be honest, even very cheap $20 Chinese multi-tools can cut without any issue. And so that is something, I think the Goat multi-tool, they'll really need to change that, because a lot of people will buy this because of the novelty. And then unfortunately, when that wears off, there will, I think, be some people who say, well, it's not near as good a tool as I thought it was, unfortunately. So again, I think it can be fixed. I think they can design something different, but I think that needs to be one of the first things they do. Now, at the bottom, it looks like you could possibly use this as a crimper. I think it may be labeled as that way. I'll have to look further, but I think it could be used that way. Now, one of the other negatives, again, this is a very good tool, but just as with anything that's new, there are some growing pains. And so with the hobby knife, this scalpel type tool, one of the things I noticed was when I try to move this up, is a tendency for the whole tool to move over and the edge of the blade to get caught underneath this lip. So a lot of times it's a lot easier just to grab it from this side and bring it up. So you can very lightly bring this up, but my tendency is to put pressure in here and try to flip it up, and that moves it over and it catches. So again, it's not a huge thing, but it's just one of those things where when people spend $100 or more on a multi-tool, they will expect everything to be perfect, and this is not perfect yet. So on this side, we have the saw, and then we do have this Allen tool, and I believe this Allen tool does adjust pretty much everything on this, including the cutters as well. And then you do have the large screwdriver, we have the awl, and then we have another screwdriver with another wrench. There's 2 wrench sizes on these screwdrivers. This one right here, this right here. Now, I'm not a fan, again, of this because I feel like it's a detriment to the tool. I would prefer no wrench. Again, you can swap these tools out, so I'm not sure why you would do that, because it seems like if you wanted a wrench, again, you could just buy an extra tool. But again, they're going for modularity and adding all they can, which I do applaud them for thinking outside the box. All right, now on the other side, we have some very good tools. So we have scissors, the bit driver, and the knife, and all these seem to work very well. So as far as the scissors, again, these you will have to snap them in place for them to lock in. And then if we grab some paracord, this actually does a really good job. So it just cuts, it seems like without any issue at all. And so really a big fan of that as well. And I've tried this on both sides and it doesn't seem to have any issue cutting. Now, when we come to, well, let's go ahead and talk about that a little bit later. So let's go ahead. You can remove another tool implement and then it will unlock. So again, the system, probably should close this knife and I accidentally cut myself. The system, again, is reminiscent of some of the older Leathermans in that you can move this out. Again, it sort of reminds me of the Schrade Tough tool, how it operates as well. So when you move this implement out, you can see that it moves this plate and then it can unlock the other implement. One of the things you will have to do is also keep pressing on this lever. This lever right here, if you were to move it out like so, then you can just easily take these tools and move them out. Now, I have noticed this lever can sort of migrate as well, so keep that in mind. It is very easy to swap tools and then it's locked into place. And I haven't had any issues with a lock failing in mine, which I think is very good, obviously. So let's go ahead and unlock this, and then we come to, let's go ahead and bring this out, the bit driver. Again, a huge fan of the 1/4 inch bit driver. It looks like it has a magnet, and then you can also, let's go ahead and grab another bit right here. Can also just use normal 1/4 inch bits in there as well. So again, I think this is something Leatherman should have done with the free series from the start, added a full-size 1/4 inch bit driver, but that's just my opinion. So very pleased that the GOAT series has done that. I feel like that 1/4 inch nut driver is actually something I use all the time, and I really miss that on a multi-tool. So huge fan of that. All right, so one of the other negative things is that it is hard to unlock tools. So you can, let's see, let's go ahead. So if you have the knife out here, you can push down this 1/4 inch driver, but again, on mine it is not very easy, and perhaps that's just because it's not broken in, but I can push down on it, and there we go. So I can push down and it does work, but again, it takes a fair amount of effort, more than I would expect. And so it's a lot easier for me on this side just to use another tool, but it is possible. Now on this side, let's go ahead and just extend the saw blade. On this side, it's a lot easier to get purchase on these, push these down, and then the blade collapses like so. So that's a lot easier. So again, this multi-tool is fantastic because it is modular. So that's one of the big things about this. Again, is it as good as the Leatherman Free? Definitely not, but this is not modular. So I think that's something you have to keep in mind. It's fantastic that you can swap blades, you can change tool sets, all that is really good. But again, you're going to have issues like with this hobby knife. And again, perhaps that's just something that they will fix in a future design. You have issues when you're trying to remove a knife, trying to make sure your lever doesn't come out. Sometimes you can accidentally almost unlock and then a tool can fall out if you don't keep track of where the lever is. So that's something to keep in mind, especially for new users like me with this multi-tool. So I think that's something to keep in mind. And some people will just want the option of it's ready to go. So with the Leatherman, it's ready to go. You can unlock it from the back. There's no real issue. It's just ready. With a Go multi-tool, this is more for the fidgeter. So again, this is for someone who wants to more design their own tool and add and remove. And so it's more for that section. Is it worth $100 or over, whatever they're asking? I think absolutely, because this is the best modular multi-tool there is, but that doesn't mean it's perfect. So again, I think this needs fixed, the cutters. And then I think just perhaps the design needs matured a little bit, not that much, but a little bit to make it easier for people. And I think a lot of people will enjoy even more. So very happy that I bought the Go multi-tool. I still think it's a fantastic tool, but just be aware that it's not exactly the same as a mature Leatherman tool.